When you have a successful gaming series, you start to run into problems. First, you're always going to try to make the next game the best game. And then second, you're going to try to take that video game series and put on the next generations of consoles. With better hardware comes bigger expectations. You don't just, players don't just want graphics because that's already expected. They also want a brand new experience that they couldn't get in the previous generation. The 2001 entry in the SmackDown series is a very interesting case study because, by all accounts, it is a next-gen game. But some would say it felt too similar to the previous entries. We're going to be looking at SmackDown Just Bring It, the first SmackDown game on PS2, and the perfect example of just because you have better graphics does not make it a better next-gen experience. As I said, SmackDown Just Bring It, first game on the PS2. I'll also like to point out, as you notice, there's no 3 next to it because that was for SmackDown to Know Your Role. This was the start of the WWE gaming series, making every game feel more standalone instead of making it like a direct sequel story. Like there isn't like some epic plot going on. Every game is pretty much self-contained. You don't need to know anything about the previous game to play the next installment in the series, which for some is good because that means you could just, a new and casual person could just walk right into this game without any issues or problems. With that said, it was also, obviously by the logo, first one on the PS2 hardware. Now, the PS2 hardware was a shift from where WWE games used to be familiar with on the PS1 because it went from CDs to DVDs. Now, outside of it having way more space, it was just the hardware was a tad bit different, and developers have yet to really tap into it. It wasn't the first year in the year 2000 when the PS2 came out, SmackDown 2 came out. With 2001 Just Bring It, the developers, they weren't 100% sure how to transition what they made on the PS1 to the PS2. And THQ and Ukes weren't the only people. A perfect example people like to bring up was Crash Bandicoot and the Wrath of Cortex. There's nothing inherently wrong with the game. It just felt way too similar to the PS1 experience, and that was the main problems in its first year for the PS2. Every game that was on there, except for Final Fantasy X, which proved like, yes, you cannot get this experience on any other system but the PS2. You have games like Crash and SmackDown Just Bring It, where while it looks better, it just feels too much more of the same that you just got on PS1. Like it didn't really feel like that next big leap that they were trying to advertise the PS2 for. But regardless, THQ and Ukes pulled through because with the success of SmackDown 2, they figured they want a WWE game under the SmackDown name to be released every year on the PlayStation, regardless of what system. And that's how we came about with SmackDown Just Bring It. So with that said, if you will indulge me for one moment as I get the gameplay ready. So here's the menu of SmackDown Just Bring It. Everything is a tad bit more streamlined compared to Know Your Role. You see exhibition, story mode, we'll get into that. Options, a new theater, create mode, and that's pretty much it. Everything else, all the other stuff is just pretty much crammed into create mode. They just made one big one. But we're going to be looking at exhibition right now. You have your singles tag, 6-man tag, handicap, Royal Rumble, King of the Ring, hardcore, falls count anywhere, survival, special. I'm pointing all this out because, as I said, it's not really that much different on the surface in terms of just what it was in Know Your Role to Just Bring It. They try to keep things pretty much the same. Same thing with the No Manager. For this demonstration, I'll be using The Rock and Stone Cold. Not much is really different here in the menu besides looking a tad bit different. Same process, except for more arenas, which we will get to. Yeah, a bunch more options. Royal Rumble, No Way Out, Backlash, Judgment Day, King of the Ring, SmackDown, Raw's War, Heat, Armageddon, Survivor Series, No Mercy, Unforgiven, SmackDown, Fully Loaded. But for the sake of this, we're just going to pick the original SmackDown arena, which is the only one we could pick anyway because not everything is unlocked. But you're going to notice, again, presentation-wise and graphics-wise, it is a big step up from Know Your Role. And unfortunately, due to copyright, I won't be able to play their entrance songs. So right now, you're already hearing the difference with Just Bring It, both visually and audio-wise. Visually, it's a big step up. They're not walking in front of a Titantron anymore. They're walking in the arena that they're wrestling in. And audio-wise, you just heard a ring announcer. So that right there, they were using the PS2 advantage of more space thanks to it being on a DVD instead of a CD. And just updated model with The Rock. And when I say updated, as you can see, he does have a better face scan. But for the most part, his body is very similar to his PS1 model. This is where like the contention of Just Bring It comes in, where it's like, yes, it's on the PS2, but it just seems like a slightly visually better version of Know Your Role. Same thing with Stone Cold. If you actually look at the bottom, it's pretty much like in terms of his legs and his body, it's essentially no different than what it was in Know Your Role. The only thing that they made sure to update was their actual face scans. But as I said, at least they have their entrances not in front of a Titantron. I mean, when I was a kid, I just thought this was so cool, especially with Undertaker's entrance, him riding on the bike through the ring. Now, it's not a full-fledged entrance. They cut out some spaces so they can get to the ring quicker. We won't truly get full entrance from start to finish until later in the PS2 series, where the SmackDown, but it wouldn't be under SmackDown name. You saw how quick it just got into the match. But this is where the similarities where Know Your Role come into play, because it plays exactly like Know Your Role, which could be a good thing and bad thing depending on who you're asking. Obviously, for people who play Know Your Role, just getting right into it, no new control scheme. You can just pick it up, and if you play Know Your Role, it's essentially the same thing. Now, there are some minor quality of life tweaks that they did, which I will point out as we get through this match. One thing is when you pick up your opponent, you still hold him instead of him being in a groggy state. So it actually gives you a better way to hit your groggy grapples instead of hoping you can hit it before he gets back to his senses. The reverse button is still square, triangle is to run, X is to strike, and circle is to grapple. But with the new hardware, they did add more animation, especially when it comes to reversals. So they tried to make things more fluid. Everything just stitches together, which does make the match feel a lot better instead of arcade-like, but it is still playing like an arcade game. Another thing you'll notice as The Rock hits the suplex, the ring is so much more bigger. Obviously, thanks to the PS2's hardware. And as you can see, I would like to point out right here, you can actually run up the ramp and it won't be a cutscene. So it's just seamlessly, you can go from the ring to the stage without a cutscene. And then when we get to another match type, I'm going to show you a new feature that It was only in this game, but then they eventually put it back in, and then they took it out again, and now they permanently put it back in. You're gonna notice in the WWE gaming series, they love to take stuff out and put stuff in. And with the interference, it's now with a camera that you can see. What is it called? The side by side or picture in picture. And despite the fact it's a normal match and there should be a disqualification, Triple H can still attack you. Again, they were very lenient on the rules back in the early SmackDown games. It wasn't until much later in the series where they actually focused on the rules. See, with the people's elbow, he did warp into the middle of the ring because it is a pre-rendered animation. And speaking of people's elbow, you can now actually have two finishers in one match. This is the first time, and I mean, it's good for two reasons. One, because now it's a lot more realistic when you hit the rock bottom. That should be a finisher instead of just leading into the people's elbow. And two, it gave them an extra move they could put in like this, the DDT, which is a brand new animation. You can now use it. And here's the rock bottom, and hopefully this is the finish. And it is. And we're going to skip that because it's going to be playing their song. So right there, while it does look visually better, for the most part, it plays exactly the same. They did touch up some reversals and tweak some of the moves to get a better animation. But for all intents and purposes, if you played SmackDown 2, Know Your Role, there is no difference in the controls. It's exactly the same. And all the animations, except for some slightly updated ones, like the choke slam was updated, but it's pretty much just an HD port. Some would call it the HD, or not, well, not HD because PS2 wasn't HD, the SD standard definition, I don't know, of SmackDown to Know Your Role. But hey, there's nothing wrong with SmackDown Know Your Role at all. Another, where is it? Actually, it's not in this menu. We're gonna use a hardcore or false count anywhere for the demonstration of this. And we're going to just do a singles. We're gonna touch on the other match types. Did you notice there can be more than 4 people now? And we'll get to that. For this demonstration, we're probably just gonna use Triple H and Rikishi. Why not? Why not? And this time we're gonna use the Raw is War Arena, and we're just normal. And a false count anywhere match. And again, thanks to the PS2, everything just looks a lot. The arenas look way bigger now, and I mean, even though the ring is like an unrealistic size, back then I pretty much did not care, because it's not like, as a kid, you don't really measure the ring. There's just more space. But there is a specific reason why, for this game at least, the ring was so huge, and we will be getting to that eventually. Just wanted to showcase again the lighting for Triple H for his entrance. But for the most part, it's the exact same body model from Know Your Role, just on a PS2 DVD disc. I mean, they definitely like what's the word I'm looking for? They like cut down the, like they smoothed out the textures of the body, but you can just tell this is literally just the PS2. I mean, the Know Your Role models, just with a completely new head and a face scan. I mean, and a brand new face scan. Because you know how jarring it would look if they used exactly the same models from Know Your Role? It would look so weird on the PS2. But the main reason why, besides showing off the arena, is that there's another cool feature. you can actually get into the crowd. And even though they're all like, this was very, very cool. And you can throw it, but I guess Rikishi is smart enough not to come in there. But it's just, again, a very cool thing. You know, if I Irish whip him, you can just fight in the crowd. I said Mike Cole and Taz is on commentary, and hopefully you can hear them. Although I might be muting them because they do sound kind of annoying. Another cool thing is that you can actually walk on the table, even though they're the exact tables from Know Your Role, just with black instead of red. You can actually walk on the table and do your finishers on them. So that's cool.
I wouldn't have done that. This is a professional.
I actually thought he was going to get tossed on the table. I think after this, though, I just want you guys to really hear the commentary, because this game's notorious for its introduction of the commentary, where you actually hear the commentators talk. And let's just say when people say you read something off of a script, it's very obvious. That 100% applies to this. I mean, obviously they were reading off a script, but sometimes you can make it less obvious and just sound more natural. That's all they're doing. But hey, it's always gonna be a rough time when you do something for the first time. You don't know how it's gonna play out. I will say, obviously, in future installments, the commentary is waves better than this version of the game. But hey, it's the first time, and it was cool hearing Michael Cole and Taz call out the moves as I was doing them. But after a while, I just stopped paying them much mind when I was a kid. Here's Stone Cold, because this was the era of the two-man power trip back in 2001. So of course, wow, yeah, Rikishi kicking out of one pedigree. But now at least this interference makes sense and should be legal because it's no disqualification. Oh, and one more, I forgot to mention, you should be able to grab a weapon under the ring, or I don't think this was, I believe this was the first game to do it, or not yet. I gotta double check on that one. No, I don't think it was the first game to grab weapons under the ring. Unless I see Stone Cold do it. I believe Shut Your Mouth was the first one. Someone correct me if that is the case, but at least Shut Your Mouth was the first time you can grab weapons from under the ring. Or it might have been Here Comes the Pain. But since it's false count anywhere, I can just end the match out here. And you see how the commentary is, again, really just wanted to showcase that we're going to be cutting them off because they won't really be needed. They're their services. You get the idea. I'm not the only person that would be talking about their commentary. We're just going to cut that off real quick. Now we're going to talk about the mode where it depending on who you ask, is either a very fun experience or a very cheap experience, for especially on the PS2. And probably the main selling point of this game, which was the quote-unquote story mode. It wasn't a season mode. It wasn't a career mode. They specifically called it a story mode, and I feel like that was the best way to go about it, because had you named it season mode or career mode, people have expectations due to the previous installment. So that's what I decided to do. Story mode, first of all, just to show the titles, people who currently have it: Stone Cold, Chris Jericho, Rhino, Matt Hardy, Tajiri, who makes his SmackDown debut, Elite as Women's Champion, Undertaker, Kane, as the tag team champions. For the purposes of this first demonstration, I'm going to show you what happens. You can actually pick whoever you want, by the way. So it's just like the previous song, you can pick whoever you want. But for the purpose of this demonstration, we're actually going to go with The Rock and see what happens. We're just going to go with The Rock. And just right off the bat, it's already 100% different than Know Your Role. To see what he's talking about, he's asking about the tag team title. He wants me to find a partner for me to contend for the tag team title, since that's what Vince wants. However, I do not want to form a tag team. And you're wondering why I have it in this screen. Besides you guys reading the text, unfortunately, they're playing the Raw soundtrack, so I can't. We're not at that stage yet where you can separate the music, but you can see how it was. Like, they really went all out. They wanted to really show off what this game could do by using the in-game models for the intro. Speaking of intros, I might, if we have time, show you the actual intro of this game. And this is a point of contention to this day as to why they did what they did with the intro. Because the intro looks nothing like what you just saw. No. They went a completely different route. They decided to do a FMV for it. Now switching back to gameplay, you see Chris Benoit's coming out. Once again, they're playing the song. So we're going to switch it right here. You can see, like, already the presentation of the story mode. This blew me away. It's like, wow, he's about to talk and everything. It was so cool. As the microphone of the actual show. If you're wondering what does your character have to do with this story, well, you're about to find out. I can now switch back. So you have an option they're going to give you. This is the first time now you have branching, or you don't have an option. And why are they playing the... Actually, you do have an option. I forgot. You actually do have an option. This is where the branching part comes in. You can either talk trash on the microphone or run down to the ring and attack. For the purpose of Rock staying... I mean, it really doesn't matter. There's no good or bad guys. But for the purpose of this, I'm just going to pick the first option. Just talk trash. You haven't figured it out. Both Chris Benoit and The Rock are trying to see who's next in line for the WWF title. Now, if you think, I just want to point out, if you think we're going to play the full length of the story mode, the answer is 100% yes. We are going to play the full length of the story mode, but you'll see exactly why I have no problem doing that. Don't worry. Well, we're going to go through the entirety of this story mode. We're going to let it play out. Again, unfortunately, I can't separate the music audio, so I do apologize, but we're about to switch back to the gameplay side. I mean, to the full gameplay screen. And you also can't skip these cutscenes. Now you have 2 minutes to walk wherever you want. So this is one of the main things people did like about this game. You could walk anywhere you want in a 2 minute time period. But for the purpose of this playthrough, we're just going to talk to Michael Cole. Yes, Michael Cole is backstage here. They really love playing the Raw intro. We're just gonna pick the second option. And now I have to find Vince. And also, as you can see, brand new backstage area where you can go up, down, flight of steps. Although this, I don't believe is playable. This particular spot is playable. Just cool to see. Like, again, they really wanted to do something new with the series. And I had to find Vince. Now, he wouldn't be in his office. You might have to go into the parking lot. I believe he said parking lot. And there he is. I keep hearing this, the Raw song. And actually, you could skip that part. So correction. Anytime there's a choice, you can't skip it. So you could skip that. So just all that just to face Chris Benoit, which is exactly what we're gonna do. You saw, we have a whole life point counter. We already saw The Rock's entrance and Chris Benoit, so there's no need for that. But we're gonna see how this story plays out, depending on if I win or lose. Try to make this as quick as possible. See, Chris Benoit also got updated well with a new face scan. Pretty much every single wrestler got updated. Especially Kane, he has a brand new attire in this game. And you can see the cutouts of Taz and Michael Cole. However, if you look at the box art of the game, which unfortunately I would not have time to show, I wish I could. Look at the box art of the game. Michael Cole and Taz are supposed to be full-fledged models at commentary, but I guess because what they decided to do for this game, I guess, was going to take up too much space on the PS2 disc. They decided to just make them cutouts. I will say though, the gameplay, if you're coming from SmackDown 2, know your role, it's a lot more. People say it got slowed down. I would say it pretty much has the best balance speed, because SmackDown 2 was pretty fast. It didn't probably slow it down just because it is very fast, especially when there's more once more people get into the ring. It is very, very fast. It gets fast. And also new camera cuts as well. As I said before, if you're wondering why we're gonna go through the season mode, it's not gonna, let's just say, it's not what you think. Despite the name story mode, which is the point of contention of this game, if you're not familiar with it. For those who are, you already know where I'm going with this. And I don't believe it is until 2 games from now where you can actually have Rock take off both elbow pads. And again, new animations are always nice, but it's the same sound pretty much from the SmackDown 2 game with the referee counting. And I hear you think that Chris Benoit is not done with The Rock. And with it being called story mode, you think there might be a follow up to this. We'll see. We shall see about that.
Attention. Caution.
And when I say again, it's just it looks like a PS2 game, but it feels like a PS1 game. Perfect example. They just used the same assets, the same loading. They didn't bother making new ones.
Caution.
They just used the exact same saving screens. And here comes Edge. I know his song will be playing. Actually not, for some reason, which I'm shocked. So again, I unfortunately cannot skip this, but Edge is, because it's going to be a decision. When there's no decision, you can actually skip the cutscene. Edge is also vying for a shot for the World Wrestling Federation title. So you got to give the developers credit. They did try to write an actual story leading into WrestleMania. Again, same thing. I'm going to show up on stage. Because had I not stood up on stage, you're not going to get the title shot at WrestleMania. For some reason. Depending on the situation. And they decide to play his music. But again, it's also cool, as you see, The Rock has a different attire. They really decided to go all out by giving other people different outfits in this game as well. I believe this is the first game where you start to see more alternate attires for superstars, which wouldn't become commonplace until years later. And here's SmackDown intro. Don't know why I decided to do that. I should have known the music was playing. They really had no problem showing off their stuff because, I mean, at the time, you have to just understand. 2001, this was as good as it was gonna look. Little did we know about the follow-up games. But this was as good as we thought it was gonna look for wrestling games back then. The PS2 brand new system. Edge is still talking to no one, by the way, because The Rock left. Actually, we're just gonna keep it on the screen until I know. I believe he left, but for this, we're just going to pick Street Fight. Now, you just saw there was 3 new match types: Street Fight, Last Man Standing, Ultimate Submission. One of them actually pretty much you can lock all 3 of them depending on which one you pick. I forgot which one, but it didn't matter. I just wanted to do a Street Fight. We're going through this story, guys. I told you. I want you to really see what we experienced back in the year 2001. We're fans of this game or the SmackDown series. Because still at this point on other console, the Nintendo 64, although I believe the GameCube at this point would have already came out, but they would not get another WWE game until 2002. So some people were pretty much settled with No Mercy. And they had a tremendous story mode or career mode, whatever you want to call it, on their console. While PlayStation had more open-ended, they decided to go a full-fledged story for this installment, which we thought was a big step up. You're going to be getting these cinematic stories on your PS2. And so far, you guys saw it. Christian Wild won the shot. We took him out. Now we're gonna take out Edge. You know it's a street fight. You have to actually walk out. I was gonna say you have to walk out of the ring. You see the referee's not counting, so. And just to show you, you can actually get on either side. Unfortunately, you can't take the mop out of the crowd. If you want to use it, you have to use it if you can force Edge into the crowd. I don't know if those steps are available to use yet. I believe they are. But Edge is already out. And that is it for Edge. As I said, we are continuing this story. And here's Stone Cold. And as you can clearly see, there's the titles. They were in SmackDown too, but they weren't around the waist of the superstar. They had a generic entrance where they all held the yeah, we're gonna have to put that. They're playing the music. They all had it on their waist with a generic entrance walk, but as you can see, they all had it around their arm, their shoulder, I should say, with a generic entrance walk. But with this game, they probably would put it around their waist. We're slowly getting towards just having the titles how you want to have them. And just insane load times. The loading was even more longer on here than on SmackDown 2 in just terms of saving the game. And here is the promo pack that I always thought was cool. Despite me and Austin not interacting with anyone, I do appreciate the effort that they did to do this. To really sell the match. So you saw the journey we was on. WrestleMania 17 is here. We officially made the WrestleMania in 2 matches. 1 Raw, 1 SmackDown. We are at WrestleMania. They really love playing music when they shouldn't. I decided to skip it. I also decided to skip that. You should be good now. And you see the graphic of the actual title. With Vince McMahon as special guest referee. Now, there is an alternate way to get an extra match out of this if you decide to lose on purpose. There is an alternate ending, let's just say, but for the sake of this, I'm just going to try to beat Stone Cold. So we can advance in the story. Since it's last man standing, I don't have to go for pinfall. I will say though, if you saw, there's a Raw Arena, SmackDown, a generic one for pay-per-views, and then WrestleMania 17, at least they decided to go out their way to make it as detailed as possible, which makes the first arena, besides Raw, SmackDown, as its own personal custom arena. The custom arenas would not be a thing until the next installment, where every arena had its own unique stage design based off its real life counterpart. Again, we're in the beginnings of the series on PS2. So they were still trying to, I guess, find their footing here on this console without completely making the game fall apart. One thing you notice in terms of bugs, they're pretty much non-existent in this game. Not saying that there aren't, but where they're not making the game unplayable, because back then there was no such thing as patches. Whatever you shipped out with the game is what you got. Which made developers make sure they made the best game possible, because they can't save it through a patch, since that was non-existent, at least on Sony consoles and Nintendo. Xbox, thanks to them being online, they could have, I don't think all of them did, to patch the game. And I beat Austin for the title. So let's see what happens next. And unfortunately, though, there is no victory with the title. And once again, they really love playing the song despite the fact. And then 3 hidden items are now unlocked. We can see what they are, but let's see what happens with the story after we get off this saving screen. Let's see what I do with The Rock. What is our next challenge as we head into Backlash? What could possibly happen? That's the story, guys, of SmackDown. Just bring it. Can't even talk, because that's how I was back as a kid. I was flabbergasted. I can't even speak. I played this the first time with The Undertaker. When I got to WrestleMania, I was like, yeah, I can't wait to finish with The Undertaker, or I want to bike with the title. That's not happening. Nope. That is not happening at all. This is the biggest point of contention when it comes to this game. Why was the story mode so short? Now, again, depending on who you ask, it's a good thing and a bad thing. A good thing is, it's a focused story. Again, the main problem with the first 2 SmackDown games, you had cutscenes which didn't make any sense in the first one because nothing ever came of those. And the cutscenes in the second game was purely unlockable reasons why they would make sense. But after you unlock everything, those cutscenes don't mean anything, because they're just going to repeat after year after year. But at least with this, they want to have a focused story. Depending on who you pick, the cutscene actually mattered, and you see your superstar in it. So I mean, and again, they were transitioning from the PS1 to the PS2. They probably couldn't think of a well thought out story in time, because this was the stage where they wanted a wrestling game on the PlayStation console at least once a year. So at least for GameCube, they had an additional year to make the next game. This was literally right after SmackDown 2 came out a year prior. So you can just imagine how people felt about the lack of a story. And that's it. However, the saving grace is it saves who is the current champion. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to go through another story, but we're going to do something a tad bit different. We're actually going to pick the champion this time. And since I was already talking about him, we're going to pick the Undertaker. Let's see how Undertaker's story is. Again, we're going to see now if you could take a guess of what's going to happen. You saw there was like a certain path if you weren't the champion. But since I'm the champion, Vince McMahon, if you want to see what he's saying, he's essentially telling us that we're going to be defending the title against Rikishi and Perry Saturn, me and Kane. And I can skip that. I'm defending at King of the Ring. So when you're champion, you actually defend your title at a random show. It could be any of them. It's not. It could also be at WrestleMania, but sometimes it might not be. Give or take. I don't think it's ever WrestleMania, to be honest with you. You have a life point bar and everything. Let's get through Undertaker's story, see how his path takes. I do just want to show this entrance. I know skipping it was because at least you show the title around Superstar's waist. In this case is Kane. I just want to show off this entrance because this is the only one that they really put a lot of thought and detail into because of how it is in real life with the Brothers of Destruction. There's a load screen and then Undertaker comes out. Unfortunately, I wish I could play the music. Rollin' by Limp Bizkit. But unfortunately, due to copyright reasons, that's not possible. But you could just imagine the little kid in me listening to Rollin' as Undertaker's riding in the ring with Kane, the entrance. Again, they really they try to make this very cinematic, and it blew me away as a kid. Seeing Undertaker Kane make pretty much their same entrance as they do in real life. So that was always cool to see. And then you have Rikishi and Perry Saturn. We're going to try to defend these tag team titles and then see what comes out of that. I don't know how I got injured off of that. As I said, if you haven't figured it out by now, besides the new HUD, the control layout, it's the same pick up and play experience that you got in the previous two entries, which again, it ain't broke, don't fix it. And transition to the PS2, since the PS2 controller is identical to the PS1, it actually makes perfect sense why they decided to do it this way for the game. And there was nothing wrong with it. The only problem is with the control layout, you're kind of limited to in terms of movesets. There's only 4 front facing, and then 4 when they're in a groggy state in the front, and then 4 in the back, and then a couple on the ground. So it's variety, but after like 3 matches, you pretty much saw all your moveset. And the pool of moves aren't as big as they are in the current games, let's just say. So you're gonna tend to see a lot of stuff except for very character specific moves. Like the same power slam, the same reversals. Regardless of how accurate it would be. I do love the double team aspect, and I believe again, know your role added double team moves. I never actually executed it until now. Thing is, a tag team match, even though I've never done this before, in the other 2 games, you can actually attack your opponent. I never pointed that out, but you could pretty much help your tag team part, whether he's being controlled by CPU or someone in real life. So you could just kind of help them out and help give them the win. You can also fight in the crowd as well during the tag team match. So they really thought this through. Gotta give them credit for it. That's how you get thrown. That's how you can throw them in. And due to my screen, you can't really see anything. Probably switch to this real quick so I can see. And just showing you how big they made the arena. And now we can switch back. Let me help Kane out. And normally we do that and call upon your tag team partner. They tend to go towards you. I don't know what the heck he just did. I don't know why he did that. And as I mentioned, thanks to having two, Undertaker not only has the last ride as a finisher, he also has a new updated chokeslam just for him, the one-handed delayed chokeslam, I guess is the best way of phrasing it. They were very relaxed on the rules. I could probably attack Rikishi with the camera. And of course, the referee is focused on the wrong thing. I will say the pinfall animations here are very unique to this game. Like that pinfall one you just saw, I have never seen in any other game besides this one. Not even the current games, that type of pinfall. So again, there's a lot of stuff that happens in this game that only happens in this game. One of which I'll be talking about briefly. That only happened in this game and it took years. I won't spoil it because you'll be seeing it in the coming days. If you're watching this in real time, it took years for it to come back, but it started in this game. I just questioned why it took so long for it to make a return. That's what it is. And very cool animations, as I said, of the reversing, but then everyone starts to feel the same with the reversal, unfortunately. Got another last ride. And that's all she wrote for Undertaker. So we successfully defended our titles again. Like I said, I think the developers really liked Kane and Undertaker, especially Undertaker, so they gave him this additional cutscene unique just to them. I think they were clearly really big fans. Again, unfortunately, I don't want to get copyrighted by Limp Bizkit, but just again, very accurate to what they would do in real life during their celebration. I successfully defended the tag team titles. So let's see. Rock had 3 matches. Let's see what happens with Undertaker and Kane as it currently saves. I'll show you the hidden stuff right after this, or if there's another story attached to it, as we currently wait for it to load. There we go. And you don't even get the credits. It just ends. So yeah, story mode. When you're a champion, you only get 1 match. So we unlocked so far the street fight, the WrestleMania arena, hitting moves, hit a movie, and create a part. So yeah, when you're a champion, you just get a match just to defend your title. But like I said, there is replay value depending on how you want to use this game. Now you can pretty much go through any roster, and if they're not champion, you can get through 3 matches. And you saw when I was backstage, depending on where you go, there are certain routes you can do. Like, it's not the same route for every superstar, depending on where they are in the rankings or whatnot, especially if you're a tag team or not a tag team, you want to form a tag team. So it's short, but they made enough branching stories where there's enough replay value in it. The main contention is that for people is it's short for the one playthrough. Like, people wanted a journey with a certain superstar. They wanted to see The Rock go all the way from this Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania So the WrestleMania, they wanted a journey like that with the full. You can just look at it from there. Like first time now, again, wrestlers they walk in the entrances without their Titantron video. Just walk in front of it, full like they're walking in the crowd. All that stuff that just does not happen. Now, when I say this game, while it looks like a PS2 game, it feels like a PS2 game. I think there is no better way to showcase that than to show the Hell in a Cell. Like again, Hell in a Cell wasn't accurate. However, this is also I'm going to showcase that you can have 6 superstars in this game. I mean, in one match, which makes the Royal Rumble that much more interesting. It's probably they didn't pick the lineup. It was actually interesting what they did. They could have put Rikishi in that spot because it make it mimic real life, but they did not do that. They decided to put Kane. And their entrances is off as well, so you can just go right into it. But we're going to see what they decide to do with the Hell in a Cell. So newer hardware. The answer, they did nothing. You wonder why they made the ring bigger is to fit 6 people. But the Hell in a Cell is literally the exact same from Know Your Role. Just slightly bigger doors to run through and break out of, but that's why they made the ring bigger. Not just because thanks to the PS2, but you can have 6 people fighting a match depending on the match type. And it does make chaotic situations, I will say. And no one wants to come up here, which is nice. Triple H just ran out. He didn't have to do that. The cage door was. They do not have to do that. They are aware they do not have to do that. Yeah, just wanted to show off. You could have 6 people. Is anyone gonna try to come up? Gonna give it like a couple seconds before I exit out. Nope, nada. Alrighty. I just wanted to show off so you can accurately make the Armageddon Hell in a Cell. Now, I would argue the next thing I'm about to show you guys is probably their secondary selling point that they really want to show off the capability of the PS2. For example, I said there are 6 people. You can actually have 8 people in the ring at the same time. I know, I lied. I apologize. 8 people in the ring. Now, that sounds impressive, right? And it is. Would you believe me if I told you that this was the final game, the first and final game to have 8 people in the ring until 2 console generations later? I won't tell you which one. We'll get to it when we get to it. But this was the first and only game for 2 console generations to have 8 superstars at once. Why? I could not tell you. I wish I could. It was capable back in the year 2001 to have 8 fully rendered superstars in the game in one match. And the speed at 60 frames per second, I might add. Somehow this was unachievable for another 2 console generations. They would not put it back in. The only drawback is that you couldn't exit the ring, but that's part of the reason why they made the ring so big, is because they knew they were going to deal with 8 people. But you couldn't exit the ring. I mean, you couldn't exit the ring, unfortunately. Yes, when it comes to the Royal Rumble, there can be 8 people in the ring at once. But just, yeah, 8 people. I'm just curious who's going to win this match. But despite them being able to do that, as I mentioned, in terms of the arenas, there wasn't a lot to it. You had SmackDown, Raw, Heat, depending on whether it was on Raw or SmackDown, a generic stage for this pay-per-view, which I believe, even though it's Unforgiven, and the only reason why you know it's Unforgiven thanks to the mat, I believe this was at least the stage up top, ignore the ramp. I believe this stage is actually based on WrestleMania 2000 due to where the Titantrons are for the logos. I believe it is based off of WrestleMania 2000, which is funny because we never properly got a WrestleMania 2000 arena until years later. I do believe it's one fall to a finish, but if you're about to find out soon. And again, the drawback is you could stop The Rock. I thought you couldn't in these games. I guess you could definitely stop him, which is very strange because it takes a while for you to be able to stop animation after. Learn something new every day with this game. So there was a ton of stuff, like, again, there's a ton of stuff that was achieved in this installment of the SmackDown series, but it was immediately either taken out or delayed being put back in for years. Case in point, this match. I'm just trying to see if it's one fall to a finish or you just eliminate people. Let's see. Or probably not. I don't know. Who's gonna get the first pinfall? Stunner. Oh no, it's elimination style. So I'll play the rest of this match to see who survives. I guess that's the reason why it's called Survivor, and that's also part of the reason why you couldn't exit the ring, because I believe the superstar just stays there. Like Triple H is just staying there for the most part. He ain't going anywhere. If I get eliminated, I obviously leave the match. I doubt that's gonna happen. Everyone's focused on everyone. And they can still hurt you. And take its kill. So I'm gonna let everyone else fight each other. As I said, don't ask me why it took them so long after this game to put back in 8-man tag, but you're seeing it in person. It was possible in the year 2001 to have 8 people fully rendered in a ring at the same time. The Undertaker's gonna stop me from eliminating his brother. Why are they both focused on me? How is it? Wow, Undertaker. There's a lot of endurance. for this game. I will say another thing, like I said, they update a lot of the animations, and some of them are very character specific. So like the Rock the Way, and depending on who you are, you exit the ring a certain way. Like Kane has a unique way of exiting the ring, his signature way. So like they tried to make all of them personality driven. I mean, like just to give them their own personality instead of every wrestler feeling the same outside of just how they look and moveset. They try to make them very personal, which I would appreciate them doing. They newly updated Rock Bottom, if I didn't point that out earlier. If Undertaker just gonna, I'm about to say, there's no way Undertaker is just gonna pin me after I just pinned Stone Cold. And there's all she wrote. We're actually going to go through one more story mode because, again, I really want to show you guys what happens when you take an alternate way of doing things. Just want to show you guys another story mode. And for the purpose of this, we're going to probably pick, let's see, just to show you like the alternate paths that you could have took. Oh yeah, Big Show's back. For this demonstration, we're going to pick Triple H, since he's not a champion. Now let's see what would have happened if for the tag team titles. But we're not going to pick that. Or we could. Because actually we will for this demonstration. Just to show you how alternate it would be. If you give me a shot at tag team titles. Unfortunately, you can't skip it once you despite the fact you already made your decision. And now you can actually go into different spots in the arena and find a tag team partner. Okay, now you're not taking the path to fight for the World Wrestling Federation title. Now I just want to show you again, you have 2 minutes. You see there's a bunch of people. I'm going to try to find Stone Cold because we're the two-man power trip and he's right there. But just want to show you how, again, there's multiple options you can pick. Or you can't exit, so it's really dependent on, I guess, PB Interactive. You have Christian, Billy Gunn, Steve Austin, and Rakishi's over there. So there's one. Oh, thank you, Christian, for subscribing. I appreciate it. Billy Gunn, and there's Stone Cold right there. You have 2 minutes. If it was if you weren't picking a tag team, you actually exit out, as I showed you earlier. And there's an alternate path to take if you don't pick the World Wrestling Federation title. You could have went this way, exit out this way. There are a bunch of backstage arenas, which I will show you before this stream ends. But for the sake of this, we're just picking Stone Cold. Just wanted to show you off the rest of the backstage. Not like he really has a choice. He doesn't have a title anymore. And you can skip it because he obviously said yes, I believe. Or did he not? I think we're supposed to meet him somewhere. Yeah, right here. Which makes no sense. It's just, again, the loading stuff makes no sense. We could have just, this did not need to be 2 cutscenes. But it is what it is. And now you face Christian Wild and Farouk, which is very strange because Bradshaw is 100% in this game. I don't make the rules. And yes, they do have their 2-man power trip entrance, which is just a generic entrance because they don't really came out separately anyway. And I believe this is a TLC, which is also a new thing. But before SmackDown 2 was just singles. And this makes me confirm that you can't get weapons out the ring because they wouldn't have them outside if I could just get them under the ring. At least that confirmed my suspicion. It wasn't this game. It's 2 games later. Oh, I'm about to say Austin. There's no way you're losing that fast. Then I think I might have made a mistake. I accidentally attacked Stone Cold. I actually did not mean to do that. But as you can also see, there's been slight updates to all the weapons as well, thankfully. Because, you know, the PS1s, could you imagine if they took the PS1 models, I mean, of those weapons, they slightly tweaked them. And a lot of these, if you're looking at the weapons, are going to be used throughout a long length of the series. Except for the table. The ladder is pretty much going to be the same ladder. It's pretty much going to be the same exact ladder for a very long time. Another thing, you can actually set up the chair that way. Again, there's something about this game. It's so weird. This is one of the weirdest games where there's stuff that's only in this game that can't happen in any other wrestling game. There's no other wrestling game where you can set up the chair like that normally. It's only this game. It's a novelty. So it wasn't enough to beat him. Once you finish this match, we're gonna exit out because again, I just really just wanted to show you the alternate route had you not had you not picked going for the World Wrestling Federation title. You know, you really didn't have I mean, it's not like you picked that title on purpose. That's just the route The Rock went. Like I said, there's actually more alternate endings. Not all roads lead to WrestleMania. You just saw The Undertaker and Dead King of the Ring. Accidentally doing my own, move on my own partner. No other, it's just fascinating. There's literally no other game that has, you can position the chair like that on purpose. I had a Chris Benoit versus that. The problem though, because it's the same controls as SmackDown 2 and SmackDown 1, and because bigger ring, when you're trying to switch targets, it does take a minute. Sometimes hard to tell when the space is a lot bigger who you're actually targeting. I'm gonna hit this pedigree and call it a day. Hopefully Stone Cold can hold him. And that's all she wrote there. And I'll also say, as I showed you, one thing I wanted to point out, I'll point out, and probably another match, which we'll save for later. At the moment, we're going to take a, I was going to say take a quick detour, but as you see, Undertaker and Kane are right here. Again, I want to surprise you guys. I actually forgot about this. Again, it really depends. This was, if you guys, this is kind of how it played out in real life. When they actually had their match at Backlash, it makes you wonder if they're going to have their match at Backlash. This is kind of similar. So it's just cool. Like I said, they really, the people on at Ukes really liked the Undertaker Kane in this game. They did a lot with them. I don't think there's only a few select people I know have specific cutscenes for them. I believe the Dudleys do and the Hardys. Like again, Kane and Undertaker, they really did a good job. Now, again, I don't know if this leads straight to the pay-per-view or... But the fact that it's telling me to save it, which now that doesn't mean anything. I don't know if it leads straight to the pay-per-view. I mean, if it does, we'll just exit. Because if I win the titles, that's it. We're going to eventually come back to this game. We're just going to take a quick detour just to talk about some other stuff. New. Okay. Well, we'll wait until next time. So just give me one moment. Sorry about that. So, as been common right now in this event, I would like to personally go over the cut content that was in this game. Now, this is not as long as SmackDown 2, Know Your Role, but there was some interesting cut content that I would like to talk about. Now, there's been debate about WCW and ECW because this game, for those who are unaware, in 2001 was an interesting year for wrestling in general. This was the year that WWF bought both WCW and ECW. And since the game didn't come out to November, they thought, thanks to the Invasion storyline, they're going to get a bunch of ex-WCW/ECW superstars. That did not happen. Virtually no one from the Invasion angle that wasn't already a part of WWE before it got bought, before WCW and ECW got bought, were in the game. They pretty much just stayed with who they had. It wouldn't be until the next game where you get a brand new set of superstars that came from WCW and ECW. Just wanted to point that out. The unlockable superstars, which we will go over, have nothing to do with WCW and ECW. Well, a couple things. In terms of the superstars, right? So the audio files. Actually, we'll talk about the audio files later. One of the big things is Michael Cole and Earl Hebner. As you saw, Michael Cole, I interacted with him, and Earl Hebner is the referee. They were actually meant to be at one point playable characters. We know this because, as you can see, they actually have pictures of them. They weren't just supposed to be just NPC players. You could actually play them, but they decide not to. To the point where, obviously, if you use the cheat or Game Shark, you can actually play as them. Because obviously, for the most part, as long as you have a cheat engine device, you can just any NPC character you can normally play as. So Michael Cole, as you see, this person's playing as him. He has a name thing as well. Then you have Earl Hebner. Fortunately, though, he does not have a name thing, so that makes me. So that tells me at the very least, Michael Cole was far longer in development to where they were considering making him a playable character, which makes sense because he was a playable character in SmackDown too. But Earl Hebner, he has no HUD, so that tells me they probably cut that idea out. And as you can also see, Earl Hebner is refereeing himself, so that's nice. One moment, actually, there's something I forgot to mute. The background noise in the game. I'm wondering, why am I hearing that? My apologies. Yeah, Christian with glasses. Nothing ever came about that. There was originally an old title screen that they would use, but they did not use it. Kenny, for some reason, was a file in the game. Don't know why. An unused entrance by Stone Cold. Nothing really special. It's just shorter, but it goes to show again they were testing entrances. Because it was the first time they were doing it in an actual arena that they had to program for the wrestlers to walk from the beginning of the stage all the way to the ring. So I can understand they have a generic entrance that I could just quickly show off. Or just again normal walking. Nothing really much about it. This was generic. The unused match type, the hardcore time limit. Now remember in SmackDown 2, this was actually a match where you can use it to, for the hardcore title. For some reason they took this out. Why? Because the hardcore title is still in the game. Because for starters, you could not fight for a title in the regular exhibition mode, despite the fact that they had full on. Despite the fact that the titles are now visible in the entrances, especially now they're in the arena. They took out the ability to fight for the titles inside regular exhibition. You had to fight them exclusively in story mode. And as for the next time you'll be able to defend your title in regular exhibition, it's gonna be a minute, but we'll eventually get there. But because of that, they decided to take out the hardcore time limit title. But they will bring it back and shut your mouth with the indicator. But just for some reason, just this game, which just makes no sense. And then Lumberjack. For some reason, it was not in the game. But yeah, I mean, for some reason, it's not in the game. Even though there's 8 people, this would have been a perfect game to debut it. I believe it debuts in either one of the next 2 installments. They had the Lumberjack. Again, talking briefly about commentary, it's very weird. And then for some reason, Taz both say ankle and angle lock. They couldn't decide on which is the right one for some reason. The audio file. The audio files are always interesting because it tells you a bigger story. Big Boss Man, he wasn't part of the main game. However, there is audio files that would suggest otherwise.
Boss Man attack.
And Taz.
Boss Man attack.
You see how they just reading off a script? It just sounds like they're reading off a script. Yeah. Boss Man choke slams. You get the idea. Boss Man was clearly supposed to be in the game. Gangrel was also supposed to be in the game, as evident.
Gangrel suplex.
But they took him out. I don't know if he was still in the company at this point or he was just like literally non-existent on TV. And then Sky Too Hottie, for some reason, was excluded even though he was still under contract.
Scotty Face Crusher. Sexay Face Buster.
And Shawn Michaels, who's also is excluded even though he will come back in the next game. But Big Show is back in this game. I forgot to point that out. I'm pretty sure you guys saw him. And X-Pac was also taken out in this game, despite the fact that he was part of the roster. So there was people who were still part of the roster that just got taken out. I think the only one that wasn't part of the roster at this point was Grandmaster Sexay, although I'm not 100% sure. But they decided to just take him out. The entrance call out. There's a list, so we're gonna go through a list of people who got taken out the game, and actually there's a reason. Actually, they just told me. Some of these I didn't read it. I should have saw this part. So D'Lo Brown, Tiger, Pete Gas, Joey Abs, and Rodney, they were sent back to developmental, so that's why they took him out. So same reason for Big Show where he originally got taken out. Bull Buchanan was sent back to developmental. Sky Too Hottie, he was injured, so that's the reason. Although, I knew it. I did say Grandmaster Sexay was released, so. But that didn't stop them from putting Stone Cold in SmackDown too, though, when he was injured. Mark Henry, because he was injured. Val Venez. So mainly because people were just injured, they took them off. But Paul Beardy just took off, which understandable. He literally did not appear at all in 2001, I believe. Pat Patterson, Gerald Briscoe, because they just weren't on TV anymore. Haku. Even though he was, so yeah, Haku's a very interesting one. You would have thought he would have been put in development of this game because he was definitely during the WrestleMania season, but they just did not. Kevin Kelly, Cactus Jack, Deborah, Paul Heyman, Justin Credible, and Terry Reynolds are not in the game, despite them, it seemed like they would have been a part of it. And their nicknames are in the files except for Kevin Kelly. They're in the files, but for some reason, they're just not in the game. Cactus Jack, despite the fact that Mick Foley is in this game, I just don't know why they didn't put him in there. Shawn Michaels, due to personal reasons, and you can hear his audio.
The Heartbreak Kid.
So Shawn Michaels was supposed to be part of this game. S.A. Rios is sad how they described it. He was employed, like I said, They obviously just haven't used him. Obviously, once they aligned Lita with the Hardys, they figured it's not worth putting him on TV anymore, and that's what happened. China, to make a long story short, that I think they summed up perfectly. Bad terms, and they took her out. Gangrel, they left during development. That's what I'm about to say. So Gangrel, that's interesting. K Quick, which is R-Truth. Even though he is in Raw, he's actually in the Raw game though. Tori got released, which is very, very interesting. So 2 months before the game came out, they exclude her because she does have a nickname in the file, and then Grandmaster Sexay is because he got fired. And again, just more audio files. Leo Brown, just proof that they were at one point supposed to be in the game, like again, Cole.
Heartbreak Kid.
So at some point they decided they were going to be in the game, and then stables that this never happened. New Age Outlaws get rowdy because again, R-Truth is in the Xbox game. Too Cool, Lowdown, Mean Street Posse, Kai and Tai, the Acolyte, which I mean that is interesting. They have the Acolytes even though they're the APA at this point. Hollies, Right to Censor. I already said Kai and Tai. So what is this one about? Oh, Edge and Christian Edge just six. Okay, that's funny. That's how I decided to do it. But allow us to look at the roster for this game because again, due to the jump, now there were 66 superstars in SmackDown 2, but due to the jump in PS2, and as you saw, all of those reasons, there was supposed to be a bigger roster. It was probably going to be either 60 or 70 based on how many people that could have been, especially if you would have factored in WCW and ECW. Again, I don't know the reason why this roster was so small. I can only speculate, mainly probably because the contract situation with WCW superstars and ECW superstar, they probably different contract when it comes to video games. They didn't probably finalize that in time for them while they were making the game. So here's who we ended up with: Albert, Big Show, Billy Gunn, Bradshaw, Bubba Ray, Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho, Crash, Devon Dudley, Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, Edge, Farouk, Fred Durst, Hardcore Holly. If you don't know who Fred Durst is the main person behind Limp Bizkit, the person who sings Undertaker's Rollin' song. Hardcore Holly, Ivory, Jeff Hardy, Jerry Lynn, Kane. I believe this is the only appearance of Jerry Lynn in the main WWE game series. Kane, Kurt Angle, Lita, Matt Hardy, Mick Foley, Molly Holly, Perry Saturn, Raven, Rhino, Rikishi, Shane McMahon, Spike Dudley, Stephanie McMahon, Steve Austin, Steve Blackman, Steven Richards, Tajiri, Taz, Test, The Rock, Triple H, Trish Stratus, Undertaker, Vince, and the debuting William Regal. So that was the roster. So think about that. The PS1 goes to show the problem when it comes to games like this, licensed games and due to real life situations. The PS1 has 66 characters on SmackDown 2. It was pushing the limits of this, but this game only had 44. Yes, it's jumped to PS2, but for all intents and purposes, this game plays and looks outside of new face scans like SmackDown to know your role. But almost over 20 characters less. So you can barely do a Royal Rumble in this game without it being redundant after one match. So that just situation stuff like that beyond their control. Again, what would have helped them would have had the WCW guys who was prominent, RVD, Diamond Dallas Page, WCW and ECW, those people. But for some reason, they just did not fit them in this game. I just wanted to point that out just one moment as we switch back to the game. Just wanted to take a quick detour there. So we're actually gonna get an exit. Probably should have saved. There's one match that I didn't mention that they added, and it's well, you'll see what I'm talking about. I mean, they added new matches, but you gotta unlock them through story mode. Ultimate Submission, Last Man Standing, and Street Fight. I believe we unlocked the Last Man Standing. And just quickly, just to show you the other stuff, create mode, pretty much exactly the same. There's, again, no difference from SmackDown 2, so it's not really worth showing. The only difference is with create a move set, they actually show off the wrestlers in the ring doing the move that otherwise, instead of like some virtual reality spot. But pretty much everything here, there's nothing different. Again, create a tall and still in, and eventually it's gonna get taken out. But just to, again, just show you guys that. But exhibition special, the newest match type. Oh yeah, I forgot. We can do false count anywhere. Let me do that real quick. I just want to show you the backstage and the backstage areas, and we'll do a fatal 4-way. Some of the new backstage areas. Why not Steve Blackman? Just pick some different people. Raven, like I said, Raven was a new superstar that came in. Yeah, let's showcase some of the newer people. Molly Holly was one, and William Regal. What a lineup! So again, the arenas. You had the commissioner's room, the boiler room, corridor A, B, dressing room, lobbies, parking lot, New York Times, VIP, plaza, parking. So just so many rooms. We're going to start this match off in the commissioner room, and we'll see where we go from there just briefly. Just want to show off the arenas that they had backstage thanks to the PS2. Again, how big they were. I mean, you could tell, though. It just looked like we were just in some little hut, little enclosed space. And again, these got it similar to... Yeah, you see, similar to Know Your Role. You had to be near it, and then you can leave. But you see how smooth the transition is thanks to the DVDs. There's faster speed. Now you can go. We're gonna go into the parking lot. It's just almost seamless. Basically no loading time. So right there, and then forklift, which we used in the next two games, fire extinguisher, shopping cart. Would you believe me if I told you a shopping cart just recently came back in the newest installment? But as you can see right here, it was in the 2001 game. You guys didn't get hit by a car, which is not a, I believe, can you ride this? No, actually, yes, you can. The craziness of this game. You can ride. Again, for the one, this is why you gotta respect developers. I know sometimes people don't like when they do certain things they don't like to their games, but in less than a year, they were able to transition this to the PS1, although not without its flaws, but they were able to add some cool stuff like this. They can only experience in this game. Like what is there any other wrestling game that you could actually drive a car backstage? I know you could drive a forklift in later installments, but is there any other wrestling game you can just drive a car? Only this game. This is what I mean. We're gonna exit here. Let's see, where do we not? We already went here. Let's try to exit this way. Oh, we could actually access this room, which is cool. That means we can probably, can I climb up here? I wonder if they allow you. Oh, yes, you can. That's actually cool. I did not know that. There's the arena. You can exit out this way. I love how everyone's just getting beat up over there. I'm just completely ignoring them. And then again, you can just pretty much, they're going to be reusing a lot of stuff, a lot of this stuff in the next game, but just with finer detail. Again, it's like they put some of this stuff in this game to get it ready for its next game. Again, it's like this was a transitional period. This is a lot, almost virtually one of the same arenas they use in the next game, but they were just getting it prepared. So you gotta, you know, it's very big. They were just getting it prepared. Let's see if we get back into the arena. I'm assuming is the only spot really left. This should be the arena. And it is, and it's Monday Night Raw. Oh no, my bad, it's Unforgiven. Oh wait, there's a exit this way. I wonder where that goes. I never knew that. Where does this go? You're learning something new. Oh, we go back over there. But you get the idea. Just wanted to show off the arenas. There's one more match type I wanted to show you guys.
Exhibition.
Again, in terms of the 3 new match type that you unlock. Again, special guest referee. You can still have 2 referees. Don't know why that's still not a thing. I know I'm hammering that home. I don't know why it's still not a game, still a thing in the modern games. It would make things so much more fun. 3 stages of hell, where you can have 3 matches. Well, best 2 out of 3. First match, again, pick whatever you want. We'll just do TLC. Second match, Falls Count Anywhere, and a third, a cage. The Rock and Stone Cold. Just, yeah, stuff that were in this game. You know, 3 Stages of Hell will make an appearance in a few more games. You know, it's gonna be a while before it comes back. I don't know why I picked Hell in a Cell last. Like I'm gonna lose. But as we are, another reason why, again, I just want to point out some stuff I haven't pointed out earlier since I was focused on everything. As I said, the crowds are still cut out, despite the fact that it's on PS2. It's just, I just want to really emphasize that just because, again, they were able to update the graphic, they didn't update everything. It was a rough transition into the next generation of console, despite the fact that they're only doing with one console at this point. It was a rough transition. They really wanted to make I mean, Yeah, I give them credit. They really wanted to make the game work instead of broken. So, what this will be the start of them slowly changing the game year over year, but still trying to make it work without any problems because, again, there's no patches in this generation of consoles. So, what you put out there, and they really like, um, to put out a quality game that people are going to enjoy and talk about for years to come. And I mean, just in general, though, you got to respect game developers. And I guess, yeah, now that I think about it, it's like they really could not screw up a game on purpose. I'm not saying the current day they do that, but you really couldn't screw up a game back then because once it's out there, it's out there. Unless you re-release the game, there's been occasions where they've done that and like modified it slightly. Once you put out this game, there's pretty much nothing else to it. What's out there is what's out there, and they're going to grade it accordingly. So if it's a buggy mess, it's a buggy mess, and that sometimes kills whole studios. You can't just fix it in a patch later. I think that's the current problem with games these days, despite the fact they take long to make, except for yearly franchises like WWE. They think they can get away with putting out a half-finished game. Not saying they do it intentionally. Obviously, there's stuff that's outside of their control, timeline crunches and whatever. But because they can rely on a patch, they're comfortable doing that, even though they know people are paying full price for the games. But back then here, what you put out there is what you put out there. And I think they wanted to have a good reputation. That's why they really tried with these games to make them best as possible. Yes, there are bugs that get through the cracks, but they weren't game breaking. You won't be able to play the game for a week until a patch comes out breaking. I don't think there was any wrestling game before patches existed that did not function. That functioned, like it wasn't game breaking that the game is unplayable. Like, could you imagine if that was the case? The second match is just what is the Street Fighter Falls Count Anywhere? I believe it's Falls Count Anywhere. I believe. At least try to break this table. And a new weapon, camera, which I think is the only game that has this weapon. Again, this game is a novelty, I swear. Like, stuff that only happens in this game, as you saw, which I completely forgot. The chair, you can have this chair in a regular seating position, and you cannot do that in any other game. It's just so baffling. I tell you, it's like so baffling that there's no other game that you can just. How hard is it just to place a chair in a seating position? Let's see, Stone Cold, you want to go? Into the crowd. Oh, and I also wanted to point out, now that I'm actually staring at it, the logo, this would be the last WWF game proper on PlayStation because they got sued by the Panda, to make a long story short, the World Life Fund, and they had switched their names to WWE. And that would affect, and that doesn't really affect the next game, although there is some minor stuff that we'll be looking at tomorrow where, due to the timeline of them making the game, there were still arenas that were WWF, case in point, WrestleMania, the next year's game. And because of that, it's just a very interesting transition. Obviously, the following installments will not have this problem because everything is WWE, but the next game, although it's branded as WWE, there's a lot of WWF assets because the game timeline and the arenas, either they just did not remove, either they removed the WWF logo entirely, or they tried to hide it, but then they didn't because you can see it. wasn't nearly as much of a problem with how, unlike the GameCube, their first GameCube game, which was WrestleMania 18, where everything was WWF. They did not have time to change it, especially when it was coming out. I believe outside of the box art, everything in the game remained WWF. Which is funny now, because if you look on the WWE Vault on YouTube here, they are allowed to use the WWF logo. Normally, back in the day, they had to blur it, but they're free to use the WWF logo now. So I wonder, what is it? It would just ease, like they just don't, either WWE doesn't care anymore blurring out the logo, or the stuff change. I believe this should be the final pin. And no, I did not change the difficulty, by the way. The wrestling is just easy in this. Like, it's just very simple. Now, the next games, though, I think that was the main criticism. This game just feels too easy no matter the difficulty. Even on its regular difficulty, you can literally pretty much not get punched. And as you saw, nothing really happened. We should finish, for the sake of this, we're just going to see what happens with the story mode. I believe it's only the pay-per-view. Or SmackDown. And let's see. I got a cutscene specifically for if you decide to go the tag team side. And now you got to find a third person. Actually glad I clicked on this. And now I can actually look for someone. Although the way they did it, it looked like Stone Cold said he was looking for someone. So weird. You have 2 minutes. Why am I outside? That makes no sense. You know, they know it. They know I'm going to have to go back inside to find someone. It makes no sense why it made me start outside. I'll probably go this way. And here's a unique cutscene with Spike Dudley and Molly Holly. So I even though the story mode is short, they did really, like, you do not get these type of cutscene in any other game after this. They're very, you're gonna see in the next games, they're very, how should I say, static. They're not this cinematic in the next installment. So again, you just got to give them credit, especially their first attempt at the PS2. None of the cutscenes are like this in the next game story modes. You like help out Spike and Molly, or just ignore it. For the sake of this, I'm just gonna help them out. You see how now suddenly, instead of going for the World Wrestling Federation title, you just end up in random spots like this? This is what I meant. Just random situations. I could just skip that. So instead of, remember, it was supposed to be, it was actually, so you see how the story changed because of what had I ignored the situation, I believe the match would have been a 6-man tag, but because I actually interfered, it turned to a triple threat, a tag tornado tables match. So this is why I said, like, this wasn't a bad, like, the concept of what they tried to do with story mode was cool. The execution of it, however, is just the fact that it's very, very short. You're gonna have to keep replaying with different superstars to get the best experience possible. Yeah, I'm gonna try, but I don't know how quickly you can put someone through a table, but we're about to find out. Or not with that move. It's like if it was obviously a tad bit longer, even 3 months, as which they would do, by the way, in future installments, I believe this was a very good, like their first attempt at it with the cutscenes instead of them just doing a insert character here, like in SmackDown 2 and 1, and they pretty much reused the same 10 cutscenes that they had available. I better block. They really try to make it cinematic, like certain cutscenes for certain wrestlers, like the Undertaker and Kane one that you just saw was exclusively for Undertaker and Kane if they're the champions. I think that's pretty cool. So now when they're not champions, you're going to get something completely a different experience if you decide to go for the tag team titles. And again, and I don't know, there's also many other ones that exist. I do believe there is a Hardy Boys one along with Lita. I just don't remember. It either involves the Hardys and Lita or just the Hardys. I do believe. There's other cutscenes I'm not thinking about. It gives you, so it does get a lot of replay value just having only. Wow, so you just get Kato. Okay, that's nice. Did we lose our title shot? Hopefully we did not lose our title. Oh, okay, so we get a rematch. So I think we have to. It's pretty much telling me that you have to win this match to get the title shot. Well, we're gonna make this quick then. Oh, come on. We're gonna make this quick. There we go. You see, back in the day, they would just make you break the table. So it was just, again, arcade. Who can do it the fastest? It wasn't real simulation, so you really had to win. Now, I wonder if since I went off the original plan, do I still get my title shot? But we probably won't find out. Do we have time? I guess we can just wrap up the story. I'm pretty sure this is the final match. We can wrap it up. Why not? And it will be interesting to see what happens. You know, I'm pretty sure nothing else is going to happen here.
Caution. Attention.
Yeah, we'll continue. Why not? And see, something unique. It's little stuff like this matters, even though obviously we've advanced beyond that, but just cool stuff like that. Imagine if in 2001 you were playing this like myself. You see? An exclusive tag team cutscene. So at least I could skip that. We'll be on the line. And just a regular tag title match. I don't believe there's any stipulations attached to this. I'll be shocked if it is. Yep, sure. Although I feel like they could have made it more accurate, put it on Backlash. Like how Triple H and Stone Cold won the titles from him anyway on that event. It's not like that's not what they were leading to, because that cutscene I showed you with Undertaker coming out on the Raw was literally an identical, essentially a recreation of what they did in real life, leading into the Backlash tag match. I believe you could call in your partner. I forgot which button combination it is, but you can call in your partner sometimes. I forgot which button it is though. He comes in automatically if you're getting pinned. And that was another thing I wanted to point out. I saw the referee. He actually, it's this game is very interesting. Although it's clearly arcade, they sprinkled in a little bit of simulation stuff. Although it's like they don't follow the rules, but like stuff like little stuff like that. The referee telling, once the referee grabs you and has that little cutscene, you actually are forced to go back onto the ropes, although you can just quickly just go back out of it anyway. Once the referee touches you, like little stuff like that. You see, if the referee grabs you, you're forced to essentially go back. You can't like ignore it, even if you did ignore. See, he just ignored it. You could just do just that. It's just like stuff like that. They're gonna essentially try to tell you to, hey, get back in here. You know, referee, do your goddamn job. I know Kane is illegal. It was supposed to be Undertaker. How did they switch? Did I miss that? But just little stuff like that. I am getting my ass handed to me. I am just getting my ass handed to me, aren't I? It's like this was probably them testing the waters of them making a simulation game, which they will in the future. We're not there yet on the in this series, and eventually they actually double down on it. It goes into a like kind of like a transitional phase of them being a hybrid, per se, but they do eventually double down on it. Making sure Undertaker doesn't get tagged. Trying to work in my finisher here. Let me switch to this screen so I can actually see what the heck I'm doing. Stone Cold seems to be taking care of Kane without an issue. Trying to work getting my finisher now tagged back in. Alrighty. And hopefully Stone Cold's smart enough to come over here, and he is. Undertaker's something else, bro. I said, can you like grab him, please? I could have pinned Kane, but I knew it wasn't going to count for nothing. So, really gotta damage him. There you go. Thank you, Stone Cold, for the save, even though it was kind of slow. And that is pretty much it for. I highly doubt I have an extra match for that in season mode. You see Triple H title special cutscene for that. It's what you make it out to be with the story mode. There is some good and bad with this, but and you actually unlocked a bunch of stuff.
Attention. Caution. Attention.
It is gonna take a minute. This is this loading screen. There's actually a few more things I want to show you in the meantime, so 1 second. as this transitions. Bear with me. All right, so with SmackDown, just bring it. Like I said, it was very divided. It's not that it was a bad game. At its core, it was a perfectly fine game. If you liked SmackDown 2, there was no reason for you not to like Just Bring It. The gameplay is essentially the same. They added a bunch of new match types. It felt and it kind of looked like SmackDown Just Bring It, just on a PS2. And to some, that's fine. Like if it's perfect, it's just when you're buying a new console and the price of a game of a new console, you're expecting something different. Now, did that actually affect SmackDown Just Bring It in terms of its review and like in the reception? Not really, no. Per Metacritic, I mean, obviously reviews, I don't know how many are still up here, but per Metacritic at the very moment, it holds a 76. And the top one was from Total Games, and it said the following. I should probably zoom in on this like this on the screen. As well as upgrading the visual and modes, the controls has also been tweaked. Not really. While the original was considered a bit too fast to play properly, SmackDown Just Bring It has been slowed down ever so slightly to allow for more authentic action, which is always a good thing. I think he's mistaking it being slowed down by just having a bigger ring, because I'm telling you, the speed of the game is pretty much almost identical. By just having a bigger ring, obviously it inherently makes the game a tad bit slower because you have more space to move. But I think that's what he meant. But as you can see, a 90 from Total Games, BBC Sport 87, GameSpot 85. Like, people thought this was a good game. Like, nowadays when you hear people talk about this game, they like, what the hell? Like, I mean, so it's just more people just give. I feel like it's people who didn't grow up with the game, didn't understand like the position it was in. It was in a weird position. The first game for PS2 they had, and this was, as I said, this was when THQ and Ukes decided we're going to release, and probably WWE to an extent, we're going to release a brand new game in this series, because now, since it's a full-blown franchise, we're going to release a brand new game in this series every year. And they, for the most part, did, regardless of who was developing it or publishing it for a very long time. But we'll get to that road when we get to it. But overall, it sold well as well. I mean, it sold well as well. I cannot speak, because SmackDown made the greatest hits. And for those who are unaware of that, I neglected to mention this. Both the original SmackDown 2, also had greatest hits, where they would change when they re-released the game. They would change the box art to represent it for PlayStation. If you had a green border that indicated that it sold over 1 million copies, or depending on how much, what in this case, again, this was only 400,000, but it was considered a greatest hits. And that's why it got this right here. And you notice something a tad bit different, specifically about this. It's a re-release of the game. It has not only the red for the greatest hits, but also the change in the wrestling logo is no longer WWF. It got turned to WWE. And the next game would be the first full-fledged one under the WWE name. And every game moving forward would be named WWE. But that's for tomorrow. As I said, final thoughts for me, SmackDown, just bring it. I personally enjoyed the game as a kid. I never thought there was anything wrong with it personally, mainly because I was biased. This was the only game in the main series to have Roland song with The Undertaker, because they immediately took it out. And the next game, not because they took it out, because transitioning into his new song at the time, but I always loved that for this game. And it's just a cool, and like, as you saw, there's certain stuff in this game that has not appeared in any other game. Either it took 2 console generations, like the 8-man matches, which was fully playable in 2001, but for some reason no other game after this could handle it. And having a chair just simply you place like that, just in a seating position in the ring. No other game has done that. So this game is a very good novelty. Never had an issue with it. It's one of those games where it was just a harsh transition. It was a PS2 game. It only came out on PS2, but it still felt like a PS1 game. But the next game in the series, SmackDown Shut Your Mouth, they took the feedback, even though it was generally well received. They took the feedback and they quite possibly made, at the time, the best wrestling game possible, regardless of which console you were on, whether it's PlayStation, Xbox, or GameCube. As they were doing their own thing, SmackDown series continuing to move forward with the next game, which we'll cover tomorrow, SmackDown Shut Your Mouth. For those who are watching live, I appreciate it, and those who are watching on demand, hope you enjoyed. And we'll be talking tomorrow with SmackDown Shut Your Mouth. Have a good night, everyone.